I'm back again with Frank Price, which is very exciting. I mean, Frank was a mentor to me in many ways. Though I came to him later on in my career, I learned so much about screenwriting. Frank, welcome back. I'm really glad
Thank you, Lionel.
Talk about film this time, and just very quickly, 2 times at the head of Columbia, once at MCA Universal. It's just an extraordinary list of titles. Gandhi, Tootsie, Kramer versus Kramer, Boys in the Hood out of Africa. And in fact, you took over Columbia when it was trading, a little like America today. The shares were trading at pennies. Was it 2 years? I think 2 years later, you tell this wonderful story of Herb Allen calling you and telling you that they had sold the company for $75 a share. It was an extraordinary achievement. Extraordinary. How did you do that?
Actually, it was 3 years.
Oh, well, of course, that diminishes the whole thing then, all right. But you took, for 3 years, you took a company that was pretty much written off, I guess, had terrible management, hadn't had a hit in a long time, and I'd worked there, and it was very dispirited. Everyone was working for these hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock options that were worth like $3. And 3 years later, you changed it.
Well, when I was asking Lou Wasserman to let me out of my contract and go run Columbia Pictures, he had said, why would you want to leave MCA, where you're one of the 3 guys who will inherit the company, to go join a company that may not be in business a few months from now? And I had said, Lou, I want to do it because I want to run motion pictures. And job's filled here. I don't see it opening up, so that's the only place I can do it. And he let me out. It took a while. It took about 3 months of constant talking to him. But I went there, and you know, the solution to a studio with problems is very simple. You need hit pictures. If you have that, there are no other problems. There were good people there. I had, Sherry Lansing, David Chasman. I had a terrific head of business affairs, Eli Horowitz. But we needed some hit pictures, and I know I got one going immediately because Randall Kleiser had come to me and pitched me something called Blue Lagoon. I liked it because it could be made for $4 million. And one of the problems I faced in getting good pictures was that I was told that I had to operate on 6-month budgets. We didn't have any money at Columbia, so therefore I couldn't commit further than that. If you're trying to put pictures together is difficult. So,
but along with Sherry, you also inherited, I think, one of the largest stable of producers in town. You had an enormous number of producers on deals on the lot eating up money. Did you not?
We did have huge overhead in the fact that we had a collection of producers that you know, there were some very good people in there, but just far more than...
You're always so diplomatic. Yes, there were 1 or 2. Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
I did realize that the problem with having a big stable of producers is that producers tend not to be people who can actually get a picture made. They've got to go get a director or a star. So I changed our way of making deals, and my deals were with directors like Sidney Pollack or Ivan Reitman. That way, if we got a script, I knew we'd get it made right now. We didn't have to get a script and then go searching for somebody to direct it or an actor to star in it. So.
Right, now parenthetically, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that had 2 ripple effects. One was other studios started picking up on that, I think Paramount being the next. But also that had a great deal to do with the explosion of CAA and Mike Ovitz as a dominant force.
Well, there was a fortunate confluence of trends there in that Ovitz was getting CAA into the motion picture business. I had come from Universal Television. We'd actually been competitors there, but you know, we would never pay an agent commission. So Mike was representing all these other studios, but we were representing ourselves. So, but we had something in common in that we were the outsiders. If I was trying to get product, you know, Stan Kamen, who controlled many of the A-list actors at William Morris, if I called Stan, you know, maybe I'm 10th or 15th on the list returned, you know, and over at ICM was Jeff Berg and Sue Mengers, you know, was there. So I was way down on that list. So So Ovitz and I worked it out very well, and it helped me, and it helped build CAA.
Your choices were impeccable, though. I mean, the titles, the ideas, Tootsie, Stripes, so many of them, Ghostbusters. I mean, just extraordinary breakthrough films. But I was always interested, and I did not know you at the time. Much to my regret, I would have been pitching you daily.
I regret that I didn't have an opportunity to really work
in America,
with you then.
the American popular culture is that much the poorer. Unlikely from my point of view. But I remember Gandhi with Dickie Attenborough, and I remember thinking, you got to be kidding. I mean, it's an episodic kind of film, and you can make it big, but this isn't Lawrence of Arabia. And I really thought, because like everyone who works in Hollywood, right, I'm also a studio head in the shower, And that morning I said no to that film. You said yes, and yet it was an extraordinary success. And I've always felt it was a very good film. It was a fine film to have made, an important film. But it was the marketing of that film. I've always been impressed with the way you brought that film to market.
Well, I think the marketing was outstanding, but I would say this, if you don't have a great film, all the marketing in the world is not going to do you any good.
But the obverse is not true, so,
Yeah, I was told at the time I was committing to Gandhi that I shouldn't do it because, number one, nobody under 40 at that point knew who Gandhi was. And number two, who was going to go see a picture about a little brown man running around in a diaper? Those were the exact words. So, and I knew that we had some problems. So one of the things that I discussed with Jake Eberts, who really got the money together, got the picture together, and so on, I wanted to hold the picture's release back nearly a year because I said, we've got to educate the public. And he agreed. This was a big decision for them, for Dickie Attenborough and Jake, to hold it back because clearly the money, the meter was ticking, so the interest payments and so on. But what it allowed us to do is work on the New York Times Arts and Leisure section. We got 6 major articles out of them on either Gandhi or some aspect of the film over that year. And as you know, those articles are picked up by every paper in all over. It influenced news coverage. We also worked with the National Education Association. We got educational books on Gandhi in the school system throughout the nation, working with the NEA. So by the time we came up to our preferred releasing pattern, which was at Christmas, we wanted to come out during that period just before Academy Award nominations, because I felt one of the good things about opening then is that all your reviews are becoming immortalized in your newspaper advertising. If you got good reviews, you repeat them over and over and over again, and that's when the Academy voters are forming their opinions. So
being told what they think.
Well, no.
No, I'm sorry. No, I believe in the Oscars. I take
reminded
it seriously.
of what you would like them to think. That's all. They do their own thinking. So.
See, I remember a billboard on the Strip. It's my imagination, way before the film came.
Now that was one of our first strategic moves. We put a billboard, prominent position, a billboard I hung on to for years because it was the best billboard on the Strip. We had this great panoramic shot of Gandhi getting off the train on his return to India with huge crowds, and we said, Gandhi, a world event. Now, we proclaimed it because, all those media people that drive along Sunset going into the studios, there they are watching our billboard, a world event. Somebody once asked me, well, who said it was a world event? I said, we did.
And indeed it was. I think a lot about the gift that you gave the career, I'm not saying to him, but the career certainly of Dustin Hoffman in both Kramer versus Kramer and then Tootsie. I mean, 2 of the most extraordinary roles ever. I mean, both your films, both different directors, different.
I had trouble in Kramer versus Kramer because the head of distribution had given an estimate of domestic film rentals of $8 million for Kramer. This was hurting me with the board of directors. I was getting a lot of pressure, and he took his numbers from Dustin's previous 2 pictures. He sort of averaged Hard Times and Agatha, and 8 million was about it.
Finally, you went back to a Universal that regime included Out of Africa, which was an extraordinary film. I mean, I didn't think anyone could ever make that. Yet you enabled it. Then you started producing your own films, and they probably, in a way, offer more insight into the things that interest you most about America and Americans. I mean, the Tuskegee Airmen. I know that was a film that people had tried to make for as long as I had been around. People had pitched that idea. It never got made.
Yeah, nobody tried to make it.
Well, people spoke of making it. You made it. How'd that happen? I mean, it just...
Well, if you look at the pictures, you basically, I mean, I love comedies, and I did a lot of comedies.
Right.
Tried that, but I had 2 themes that I tended to deal with a lot in any pictures I did, and that included television, and that was gender, the whole thing of women, right, and the culture, whether that was Tootsie or League of Their Own or Out of Africa was that too, because that was the story of a woman ahead of her time and showing how the culture then treated her. And the other theme that I was constantly interested in was race. And Gandhi dealt with that. We did with Dickie Cry Freedom that dealt with Steve Biko. But, you know, in a sense, Stir Crazy, which I did with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. One of the things I liked about that, it was 2 friends, one white and one black, and they were friends. We never mentioned race in the picture. Race is not dealt with. They're friends. They both go to prison, and you know it's there, but it said something. But anyway, that was one. Soldier's Story, I explored it there. Boys in the Hood, and so Tuskegee was just an extension.
Just a logical extension. In parting, the thing I think I want to point out most is something that touches me very deeply. Your mother was a waitress in the Depression in the Burbank studio. In the commissary.
Warner Brothers.
Well, it was Warner Brothers then. Yes.
Burbank Studio was a temporary name.
Yes, but when you ran Columbia,
it was the Burbank Studio.
That was your studio.
Yes.
And you were the Doge, and you ate in that studio every day, where your mother had once worked for tips in the Depression. And I think your story is one of the most extraordinary stories of achievement, of American achievement.
That Warner Brothers lot was where I saw the first show being shot I ever saw, which my mother got me in, and I was able to be on this stage that had 2 ships on it. And they were shooting the Sea Wolf with Edward G. Robinson. Right. I stood on the deck of the Sea Hawk, which had already been shot, and was able to look across while they were laying fog in over on a close shot of Edward G. Robinson. So, and I think I was 9 years old.
And it began there. Well, you've left a great legacy to all of us. And we're all a lot better for your efforts, and they continue. I mean, I think that's what's the most amazing thing about Frank Price. And I can't thank you enough for taking time to come and see us. We're hardly worth the effort, but at least it was only me, and it wasn't me and him. And now Matt will give us a preview of what's in theaters this weekend.
Hi, this is Matt Atchity, Editor-in-Chief of RottenTomatoes.com, here to let you know what's fresh and what's rotten in theaters this weekend. First up is The Watch, a crime comedy, well, maybe a sci-fi comedy. I don't want to give too much away, but it stars Ben Stiller, Vince Vaughn, and Jonah Hill as some guys who start a neighborhood watch to kind of fight crime and solve a murder case, and then aliens show up. We've got no score yet for this because, unfortunately, the studio is being really hardcore about enforcing their review embargo. So at this point, we've got no score at all, but I've seen it. I thought it was kind of weird. I'm not a huge fan. But if you're a huge Ben Stiller fan, a huge Vince Vaughn fan, you're probably going to enjoy this. In fact, I think Vince Vaughn is really probably the best thing about this movie. Lots of patter, lots of smart remarks, typical Vince Vaughn behavior. And if you like that sort of thing, like I do, you're probably going to like him in this movie. Next up, we've got Step Up Revolution. Step Up Revolution is the 4th film in the classic Step Up series. Unfortunately, it's only about 20% on the tomato meter right now. Most of the critics say it's about as dopey as you'd expect. The dancing's good, but the story is terrible. But hey, if you like dance movies, you're going to love this. However, I should warn the ladies out there, Channing Tatum, not in this one. But if you don't want to go see any movies this weekend in the theaters because it's not so great, you've already seen Dark Knight Rises, there is a recommendation I have on home video this week. It's called Hero Dreams of Sushi, and it's about a sushi chef that works in a subway station in Tokyo. Hero is supposed to be the greatest sushi chef possibly in the world. This documentary is a fantastic look at somebody's pursuit of their perfect art form. 98% on the tomato meter. I can't recommend this one strongly enough. That's it for the movies in theaters this weekend. For all of the scores for this week's movies, plus some DVD recommendations, make sure to check RottenTomatoes.com.
That's it for Pollywood this week. On behalf of Roger, still wet up in the Northwest, and myself, we'll see you next time.